This is Jennifer Good. I'm an officer of ECO Club on campus, and I'm talking to you today about composting. Luckily enough at UTD, we have on-campus apartment composting along with in the dining hall. But I'm going to tell you more about how it really works and the different options you have. So first, the more common that most people know about and kind of how this works is hot composting. So that's where you put all your different food scraps and natural materials into it, and then you normally kind of mix it around, and the decomposition heats up, and that's how it all breaks down. But there's also worm composting, which is where worms go in and feed off the decomposing material, but it can't get too hot. And I know about this because I work at Texas Worm Ranch, a worm composting facility. So to start off, right here you can see an at-home hot composting system. It's just a pile of compost where you can put your extra food waste and tea leaves and coffee grounds, things like that. And you can see the stick is here to help mix it around because you want to mix hot compost to move the decomposition and get it all kind of mixed together because you want a balance of nitrogen and carbon, where nitrogen comes from your food waste and carbon comes from all the leaves and twigs that you can see in here. And that'll keep it from smelling and getting a lot of bugs as well. So now we are looking at a worm composting system, and one of the first differences you see is the newspaper on top, which is kind of a layer of carbon that can decompose into the soil and protect it from the outside elements. And then below that is where you put the food waste, but it's only a few handfuls a week is usually what we recommend, depending on the size. You just don't want too much because it's as the food decomposes that the worm feeds off of it. And if you get too much, you'll get just stinky and buggy. And you can see all the worms right there in the soil. To keep these worms alive, the system has to only have a little bit of food waste and be inside, because otherwise the worms will get too hot. It has to be below 85 degrees or so. The end result of worm composting is worm castings or vermiculture, which is technically worm poop, but that is the nutrient-rich soil that you want to have in your garden. Now this is the castings under the microscope, so you can see the variety of microorganisms living in the soil. So the little round but kind of clear forms are amoebas, which are nutrient cyclers, and all the tiny little round circles are bacteria, which you don't want too much of. You want a balance of other creatures. So this long rod here is fungi, and that's really important for plant growth. Overall, you want the abundance and variety of life that worm composting provides. To get your good compost from either worm compost or hot compost, you need to kind of have it be settled for a while. In the case of worm composting in this video, you can see that you get from the bottom. So it's what's been processed the most from the worms, and it's really just the castings that are mostly left. While in hot composting, you would kind of just leave half of your pile alone, and then take out the good soil that comes out after about a month or so. Worm composting, on the other hand, should be harvested about every 8 to 12 weeks, so it does take longer. So the next step is to put your castings in your garden. So here's a handful of it. It's fine particulate. They want to be moist enough to hold its shape, like you can see right here, but also be able to break apart, so right on the edge of moisture. And so you go ahead and put it just on top of your soil in your garden, and spread it around. And then once you're done with that, you'll end up putting mulch or paper, something on top to protect it and let the microorganisms seep into the soil. Once you've given the castings some time, weeks, maybe even months, sitting in your soil, it'll make your plants grow bigger and better than ever before and make you able to grow your own produce, and then that can feed back into the whole system. That's what sustainability is all about, trying to close loops. So composting is one way where you can grow your own food and then put it back into the system. So now y'all have seen the whole process of composting. It goes from your natural food scraps to decomposition, then to worms or not, and then that goes to microorganisms, and that goes back into your soil, and that creates healthy produce and plants for you to eat in the future. Thanks for learning about composting with me, and I hope this inspires you to get started.